Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I'm Rajni Nair, Assistant Professor in Communication Skills from Usha Mittal Institute of Technology, SNDT Women's University, and today I'll be taking you through the module on gender and social media. The objectives are, this module will enable you to critique the operation of gender on social media, distinguish between the concepts of cyberfeminism and digital feminism, and critique existing cyber laws, and catalogue the need to monitor, examine, and filter social media content. The internet, dear friends, has engulfed and overpowered our lives like no other medium has in the recent past. The internet has become so ubiquitous that for most of us, there is a blurring of boundaries from it becoming a luxury to it becoming a daily necessity. As more and more people start making use of the internet, it becomes imperative that we understand the ramifications of the medium being used, which in turn will help us become better creators and consumers of digital content. Today, almost everybody wants visibility and presence on social media. All age groups have accounts on various platforms of social media. Platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp have become synonymous with existence in the recent past. Our lives have now been divided into the real and the virtual, with the virtual riding and overpowering the real. Currently, total time spent on social media beats time spent eating and drinking, socializing, and even grooming. Teenagers seem to be spending up to 9 hours a day on social media platforms. 30% of all time spent online by most people is now allocated to social media interaction. And the majority of time that is spent is on the mobile. 60% of social media time is facilitated by a mobile device. Statistics reveal that there are about 213 million users of Facebook in India, out of which, sadly, only 24% of users are women. These women happen to be educated, tech-savvy, and largely urban, but this figure is on the rise as more and more women are joining the Facebook users club. So the need to examine how these platforms offer new opportunities for exploration of gendered identities and how these platforms provide new forums for attacks on women and have also turned into restructured sites of inequality. Let's look at gender and the digital world, the theoretical framework. To understand how gender operates in the digital world, one needs to go back to the work of cyberfeminists and the critical insights provided by them on the operation of gender on the internet. Sadie Plant, director of the Cybernetic Culture Center Research Unit, University of Warwick, Britain, first used the term cyberfeminism in the year 1994. She used it to represent the work of feminists who were involved in exploring the internet, cyberspace, and media arising from the advancements in the field of technology. Before the cyberfeminists, the feminist study of new media technologies was restricted to examining the technological developments as social and cultural constructs. Technology was viewed as something that men have created and are interested in. This despite of the fact that women were actively involved in the creation and development of technology throughout history. Their contribution was somehow neglected, and women were marginalized and continue to be marginalized in the field of technology. One agenda of the cyberfeminists was and continues to be to get women their due and a voice in the field of technology. Donna Haraway, professor in the History of Consciousness program at the University of California at Santa Cruz, is another pioneer in the field of cyberfeminism. Her path-breaking work, A Manifesto for Cyborg, pitches for a feminist cyborg who challenges the singular identities of grids of control that operate to restrict freedom of women and other marginalized groups. Haraway proposed that women need to get into the field of technology and become more proficient in the use of technology and be actually involved in taking policy decisions in the field of technology rather than being mute consumers of technology. Only then we would be able to bring about a change in the thought process that women have not really been involved in the creation and development of technology. However, despite the fact that the digital world seems to obscure physical characteristics, many women find that gender doesn't seem to leave them in the online community. And most often than not, gender sets a tone for their public and private interactions. This forces women to deliberately choose gender-neutral identities and keep away from expressing their opinions in the digital world. Feminist digital humanities is a more recent field of study and research that emphasizes on the role played by women in the creation and usage of technology, especially the internet. They try to bust the notion that internet is by men and for the men. Scholars like Wendy Chun, K. Catherine Hiles, and Claire Potter are feminist digital humanities scholars. Feminist digital humanities scholars have created projects to promote feminist scholarship and women's history. Clio Visualizing History's web exhibit, Click, the Ongoing Feminist Revolution, which depicts a history of feminist activism from the 1940s to the present in the form of essays, film clips, and illustrations, is one example project. It was founded by Lola Van Wagenen in 1996. Feminist digital humanities is also trying to exploit the internet as a medium to create and disseminate solidarity amongst women and to use it as a medium to create awareness about women's rights and oppression. It looks at the internet as a medium to bring together and provide voice and agency to women belonging to diverse cultural and socio-economic backgrounds. Let's look at representation of self and image construction on social media. Social media has had a ubiquitous impact on our lives. Everyone we meet, irrespective of the person's age, educational status, or gender, wants to be seen on social media. There has been a phenomenal rise in the number of active users of social media in India, especially women. This leads us to question why women find social media to be so attractive. What is the motive behind women wanting to be part of the social media wave? One reason, according to experts, is the power that social media grants to its users. Users tend to believe that they have information about the world and beyond at their fingertips. And by engaging in the use of social media, they are actively engaged in the construction of their reality and that of others around them, and to an extent of the nation and the world beyond. So you have people writing blogs about people, places and events. You have people posting pictures of incidents and commenting on them. You have people collaborating to create public opinion about events and issues of social and national importance to force the government and legal agencies to take heed to their requests. Representation of self on the internet, especially on social media, takes on two forms, visual and written. The images that we post of ourselves and others, our cover and profile pictures, the color, fonts and layouts of our profiles take the form of visual representation. Written representation comprises not only the blogs and other write-ups that we post, but also the status updates, the tags and captions we give to our selfies and other pictures, the comments and tweets we make, and the tracings of our movements, example, checked in details, etc. Let us consider why the term representation has been used instead of presentation. Is there a difference between these two terms, and can they be used interchangeably? What we post on the internet can be both presentation and representation. What we present is what we would like to project to the world about ourselves, whereas representation is the meaning that different people might attach to our presentations. We have to agree that on the internet, especially on social media sites like Facebook, we interact with different sets and groups of people. Our immediate family, relatives, friends, colleagues, and other acquaintances. What we post on social media, by the very nature of the technology that we use, can never be considered private. Irrespective of the security layers we try to impose on our social media accounts, we have to accept that what we create on social media is a digital object, and it is actually open to public gaze in some form or the other. The way our family would respond to a particular digital object we post on social media may not be similar to the way our friends or colleagues or our employees react and relate to it. What is ironic is that most of us forget that when we engage in social media activities, we tend to believe that social media and electronic gadgets like the mobile phone or the laptop or the computer are digital vaults, and nobody can access them without our consent. But the fact is that every software created can be cracked, and digital objects which we consider closed and private today or tomorrow can see the light of the day. And once that happens, the way people may react to our presentations is beyond our control. And so, we need to look at these digital objects as representations and not as mere presentations. Let's now look at writing about the self on social media. Most people these days have used or make use of various platforms to write about themselves and their lives. A net user these days would have accounts on, say, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Snapchat, and even have a blog or page dedicated to himself or herself. These active users of the blog have been termed micro-celebrities by Sneft in the year 2013 and influencers by Aberdeen. Micro-celebrities or influencers are everyday internet users who amass a relatively large following on blogs and social media through their textual and visual narration of lives and lifestyles. They engage with their fans in the digital and physical spaces and commercialize their popularity by integrating advertisements into their blogs and social media posts. The main thing that differentiates influencers from the majority of social media users is that they commercialize their activity. They use advertising, sponsorship, and advertorials to make money in social media, heavily using their online identities to make their messages personal and intimate, and using emotions and designing empathetic communication with their readers in order to establish strong, lasting relationships. Other celebrities might not directly monetize their self-representations in social media, but they use them as a platform to increase the influence and money-making potential in other channels. For example, driving interest for their films, books, TV shows, music, or political cause. It can be argued that social media forces people to promote and sell themselves as brands. But most people use social media to express themselves and connect with friends and colleagues. For most women, blogs or blogging act like mental visits to the gym, where they give a creative outlet to themselves and use their latent talent to either find agency and voice in a system that is otherwise famous for gagging their voices and individuality. One finds the presence of many online women's groups which act as soul-sharing medium for women. Women share their deepest aspiration, hopes, dreams, and fears and tribulations with other like-minded women and aim to find solace in other like-minded women and their thoughts and opinion. Women's groups have helped many terminally ill and depressed women overcome their ailments and find agency and creative outlet. These groups also provide newly married women and young mothers with a platform to express their doubts about their newly assigned roles and discuss questions that they could possibly have reservations talking about or sharing in public. The suggestions and advice given to them by other women on these groups help them deal with these specific problems that they encounter, and most women who participate in these discussions are not really known to each other. Hence the feeling that the advice is given by a third person and is usually unbiased. Let us now look at selfies and visual representation. By the second decade of the current century, we had cell phones with built-in front and back-end cameras, good screen, cheap data plans and mobile service providers. With this, visual representation on the internet became the norm of the day. And we had people clicking and posting pictures clicked of themselves, family and friends on the internet. The year 2013 saw the advent of the selfies. The selfies usually are taken on the smartphone, where the front-facing camera combined with the screen allows the photographer to simultaneously see and record herself. The smartphone acts like a mirror which captures our reflection at any moment. Once we own a digital camera, we can take as many photos required without worrying about using up the film or having to pay or to have to develop the photographs. Perhaps it is almost as important that we take photographs with the assumption that nobody else need to ever see that particular photograph. A lot of research and writing has taken place in the last few years. Much of the research on selfies as visual artifacts or representation focuses on what Paul Frosch calls non-representational changes, innovation in production or aesthetic design of images. Frosch uses concepts from the theory of photography to argue that selfies are gestures. That while photographs have been previously indexical primarily because they are traces of a material reality, selfies are indexical in that they point to a communicative action. The selfie says, not only see this, here, now, but also see me showing you me. It points to a performance of a communicative action rather than to an object, and is a trace of that performance. Let's now look at the security issues involved with gender and the internet. With the unprecedented rise in the use of the internet, the instances of crime using the internet is also spreading its vicious tentacles far and wide. Cybercrime has become a global phenomenon, with women and children becoming easy targets to the perpetrators of these crimes. Cyberstalking, cyberbullying, harassment via social media, morphing and message spoofing are examples of crimes being perpetuated on the internet. Most women find themselves easy targets of these stalkers and bullies on the internet. These people create fake social media accounts, befriend women and children, and get easy access to private information, pictures, and other personal details. The anonymity that social media offers and the ability of social media to give a creative and emotional outlet to people, especially women, who do not necessarily enjoy these freedoms burdened by their societal roles and expectation, makes women and children put themselves out on social media. New age social media apps like Snapchat prove to be especially dangerous because participation in these apps means posting through pictures. These pictures most of the time end up being too personal or sexual in nature. Women place a lot of trust on their friends in these platforms and believe that the images and the text they share in confidence will not be shared or misused by their so-called social media friends. but the reality is far from removed. Most reported cases of cyberbullying happen between close friends and relatives. In recent times, there has been a spurt in the circulation of rape videos and other acts of physical and sexual abuse. People shoot these videos and circulate them, causing a lot of psychological trauma to the women involved. Another cause of concern is the use of mobile phones as a security vault. Most people use the mobile phones to store and record information, text, images, and other private and confidential information, as people used to maintain a personal diary in the past. The assurance that most people have is that the mobile has a password, which will help keep their information safe. But most phones can be easily unlocked by software experts, and information stored on the cell phones be easily snooped around by the multiple apps which we unknowingly authorized and grant access to our personal information when we accept the terms and conditions of the apps we install on our phones and on other platforms on the social media without actually reading them or understanding the ramifications of our actions. We need to understand that crime is not new to humankind, but cybercrime is. And countries and their legal systems are still ill-equipped to deal with cybercrime and the indigenous shape cybercrime has acquired in the recent past. A study of cybercrime laws in India revealed that even though Chapter 11 of the IT Acts deal with the offences such as tampering with computer source documents, hacking with computer systems, publishing of information which is obscene in electronic form, access to protected system, breach of confidentiality and privacy, publication of fraudulent purpose, the IT Act of 2000 still needs to be studied and modified, as it does not mention crime especially against women. The elementary problems which are associated with cyber crimes are jurisdiction, loss of evidence, lack of cyber army, and cyber savvy judges who would try and solve these problems. With the ever expanding tentacles of cybercrime in the cyberspace, the concept of territorial jurisdiction actually blurs away, and the sections which are mentioned as far as the IT Act is concerned, some or the other seems to be inadequate. Again, under no section in the IT Act 2000, obscenity, personal viewing is an offence. In fact, like in IPC 292, if it is proved that you have published or transmitted or caused to be published in any electronic form, only then under section 67 it can be an offence. The IT Act 2000 does not mention typical cyber crimes like cyber stalking, morphing, and email spoofing as offences. To conclude, the problem with cybercrime and women is that most women fail to recognize or even acknowledge the harassment that happens on the internet as crime, which needs the intervention of law agencies. Most of them continue to suffer emotionally and bear the trauma. Almost all websites and blogs provide security tips for safety of women and children. Yet, cybercrime against women and children is on the rise. It is partly so because cyberspace is a transit space for most of its users. They visit and leave the place unlike any other place. Women should become more aware of ways in which they can fall prey to cybercrime and the existing cyber laws. The existing cyber laws need to be analyzed and made more conducive to women. The problem would be solved only when women report back or even warn the abuser about taking strong legal action instead of being in denial mode or succumbing to the demands of the criminals. Internet as a medium of communication is here to stay and will become more and more ubiquitous in the future. The government and legal agencies will have to be prepared for the threats this medium would bring along. Only with timely thought and intervention from both the legal agencies and aware citizens will we be able to make optimum and safe use of the internet. Thank you.